coming up on this episode of Free Lunch.
Here's the thing. You're able to do these things now. There is going to come a time in your life when you're not able to do it.
Yeah, that's going to be scary.
So why not do it? Take pride in it. So if you're going to be a garbage man, you know what I mean? Be the best garbage man that you could be.
Facts.
You know, one night she recorded me snoring. and it was like a freight train. When you had first went into high school, I hadn't graduated from high school at that point.
What's going on, lovely people? It's your boy, The Real Free, with another episode of Free Lunch with The Real Free. This might be just a bonus episode, but it has every single capability to turn into a full-on episode. I got a treat for you today. I have none other than Mr., what you could call Mr. Freestyle Gospel, the origin of The Real Free himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Jonathan Bailey. It's my pops, y'all. It's my pops. Give it up for Pops.
What up, y'all? How you doing? What's happening?
Yo.
Jonathan Bailey, a.k.a. JB, a.k.a. Charlie Chase, a.k.a. Charlie Rock from up the block.
Yo.
You know what time it is. Chuck D in the house.
Yo, a.k.a. Charlie Rock. Yo.
And, we can't also forget for my motorcycle community enthusiast, or however you want to define them, Mr. Full Frame, a.k.a. Flaming Knights MC, New Haven, Connecticut.
Yo.
06511. Act like you know.
That's the 06511 chapter. You better act like you know.
The founding chapter.
The founding chapter. Flaming Knights. Shout out to the Flaming Knights.
There you go.
Yeah. So on this episode, man, me and Pops, we wanted to chop it up about really my latest accomplishment, one, and how it relates really just is as a personal accomplishment of my own. Really what it's meant to me individually, personally, but also what it's meant to me through the lens of JB, Mr. Jonathan Bailey, my pops, as his son. So what a lot of people don't actually know is that on October 1st, I graduated with my bachelor's degree in criminal justice and child development. But this is the part where many do not know. This has been, for me, a 20-year journey to the T, exactly, to the year. 20 years ago, back in the day, dating myself now, in 2001, this young man graduated from high school here in CT. And it was a proud moment for my parents, I'm sure. Pops could talk, to that directly himself. But what was also kind of dope was where I actually ended up graduating from high school was actually, as my mom Dukes tells me, was the high school that my mom actually attended at some point when she was pregnant with me. So shout out to Hamden High, man, them Hamden Dragons out there. Big shout out. So it was a really special moment of time. A lot of hopes and ideas and big things for me was in the mix, I'm sure, as parents. But as life would have it, you know what I mean? We all on that journey of life as we take it on, once we become 18, once we graduate high school, and now, as parents that we both are, now at this point, as a father, I've been able to, now hindsight, relate to so many different kaleidoscope and spectrum of emotions that my father has articulated over the years. Life happened, and, I didn't go off, to college and kill it like I would have hoped, and, my parents might have would have hoped. But it's always been something that I started, and it's haunted me to complete it because I know I started it. And that's one kind of value that I have taken from my parents over the years, is trying to be committed to something. If I'm gonna do something, one, do it well, and also, finish things you start. You know what I mean? So even if it, took that long another, page from, Pop's book, has always said to me is, not how long as it takes, but as long as it takes. You know what I mean? So I did that. I got it out of the way. October 1st, my degree was officially conferred. But what was interesting is something that I want Pops to share about is I later discovered as I, stumbled, through adult life and, was, in and out of school. I did like, night classes at one point at a local school at Albertus. And then like 6 years ago, I went back to school to try to finish online, and that's where I've, ultimately finished. He says something that may strike or resonate inside of like other parents for a plethora of reasons, maybe because of your own background growing up as parents, or because of out of a desire to not really put too much burden maybe on your children. Maybe it could be multiple reasons, but my father said he had really kind of just two things that he had hoped for any of his kids, not just me, that he would have wanted them to achieve in life. And I'll let Pops, break that down and share that. What were those two things, Pops?
Stay out of jail, graduate from high school.
Stay out of jail, graduate from high school. And why was that, Pops? Was that because you just didn't want to be like super burdensome to your kids and give, have like the bar set so high because you don't want them, trying to go for the thing? Or was it because of your upbringing and your environment, what you saw around, and just
no?
What was it?
Well, because I grew up with the philosophy that whatever you do in life, do it to the best of your ability, and that no matter what you do, take pride in it. So if you're going to be a garbage man, be the best garbage man that you could be.
Facts.
You know what I'm saying? And so, if you're going to be an attorney, be the best attorney that you can be. And so, my thought around education was not that, college isn't something that's useful and college isn't something that you shouldn't pursue. My view was that, if that's something that you want to do, you have to decide whether or not that's going to be right for you. All right. For you and your brothers and your sister, I had imagined that you would all go to college simply because you were all intelligent, capable children who had the capacity to go to college and do well. And so for that reason, it seemed like it would be a natural fit. Yeah. But ultimately, you all had to decide whether or not that was something that was going to be for you to do. Now, another piece to that is when you were getting ready to graduate from high school, my thought was, well, you're going to do something, right? So if you ain't going to the military, I guess you are going to college. And so when you graduated, and there was no talk about you going to the military or going.
And mind you, the 01 was when 9/11.
Right, exactly, right, exactly.
So that really wasn't even on the radar as an option. Really, nobody wanted that as an option.
Well, and plus, by then I had my own thoughts about the military, and and whether or not I wanted my children's lives to be sacrificed for a country that may have be suspect when it comes to the application of military force around the world. So I was really kind of like, well, I ain't trying to send my child off, to fight in some godless war, what I mean, that, and be, just be used as cannon fodder. So the thought is that you would go to college. So by the time you graduated from high school, me and your mother were kind of steering you towards that direction, that like, well, this is the next step, right? So you're going to apply for some schools, you're going to go and this, that, or whatever. But, in the back of my mind, I never really looked at college as like kind of like a thing that I was going to force you to do. It was something that I felt that you could do and that you could do well. And I hope that, that maybe possibly it would be something that you pursue.
I don't think you really have to ask the question of why would a parent want to have their child finish high school or have that as like hey, one of my requirements. But the other second thing you mentioned is, finish high school, stay out of jail. Was there something in the environment or that you saw in maybe your children at a young age that would have that idea that there must have been a fear or concern that they could end up in jail? If that was amongst your two things, like, hey, I just wanted them to graduate and not be in jail.
Right, yeah, well, because, it's for a number of reasons, right? One, it has to do with the environment, right? We live in an inner city, New Haven, Connecticut, that has its share of social ills and problems, most specifically impacting or greatly impacting people of color, African Americans in particular.
Our young black boys.
Right, exactly. So, and being, growing up in New Haven myself, and experiencing some of the negative ills that young black men in New Haven could be subjected to, that in and of itself gave room for pause for me when approaching my ideas about or outlook about what could potentially happen to my sons. So there was a real fear, and quite frankly, that fear is what kind of drove a lot of decisions that I made around fatherhood and how I was going to instruct you and your brothers and your sister around kind of expectations and kind of what would be done and what would be acceptable, right? So one of which is that you're gonna stay out of jail and you're gonna go to school and you're gonna get education. That's gonna be the primary focus right now. When you turn 18,
number one.
Yeah, exactly. You turn 18. You get to decide kind of a little bit more about kind of what direction you want to go in your life. Yeah. But as long as, I'm steering this ship, this is what's going to happen. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. I'm not going to allow you to be in a position where you could potentially end up in jail, right? So that means you ain't hanging out all hours of the night. You're not rolling up in here or hanging out with Leroy and Keon and them on the corner. That's not going to happen. And I expect that you're going to go to school. You're going to try to
no offense to Leroy and Keon if y'all out there listening, if anybody named.
Right, exactly. Those actually two of my homeboys from back in the day. So and I know where they ended up at. God bless Leroy and Keon. We're going to leave it at that.
So, like present day for my pops also, like I have two younger brothers that are coming up now still. They're not, out of high school yet. So they still in Pop's house. Pops is still instilling whatever those things is him and them. So what would be those, if there's a third dimension for them, like right now, right? So it may not be like a concern for, because of one, maybe the environment is different, right? Like they're not coming up living on Batter Terrace or Sherman Avenue in New Haven, maybe, right? But the sentiment maybe of education, like, finish high school at least, whatever you're going to do. If you're going to pursue college, that's for you, great. Probably still not wanting to become teenage parents, right? Is there a unique third dimension or facet of that's unique to this day and age? That would be, is there a one item that could be pointed to that would be a thing I've added to the list because of these boys now that I'm raising in this particular time our society's in?
Right.
Not from the past, maybe where.
Yeah. So there is, and it's something that's interesting too, right? And it's the idea of being more not socially conscious, but not politically conscious, but being aware that there is a system at work within society that doesn't necessarily have your best interests at heart. And I'm not talking about like classic racism, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I'm not talking about classic police brutality.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like a
The more
system.
subversive,
I'm talking about like
discreet thing.
I'm talking about like social media. I'm talking about like the conscious distorting of information by political pundits and things like that.
Yeah.
Where for you guys, you know,
that was less a thing.
That was less of a thing, right?
Social media wasn't really around.
Exactly.
There wasn't these mechanisms by which so much disinformation or manipulation of information and portrayal.
Right. So for you guys, y'all had that, right? Like I taught y'all about Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, people like that.
Library and books was more thing.
Right, exactly. It was more for a historical perspective to help kind of like build your idea of kind of the importance of Black unity, Black history, Black respect, that that we come from a long line of strong Black individuals who served our community, this, that, or whatever, to make it to make Black people. Your ability to go to college was built on the bricks that these people laid, right? And things like that, right? The sacrifices that were made by like people like Dr. King and things like that. So your brothers are getting that, but
there's a new beast for them to navigate now.
But there's a new piece now, right? It's not so now. So now, like we have this idea that like racism doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
We all know that it's a lie, but but now everybody's being fed this idea that that we've kind of like arrived as a society. We've had a Black president and all of the, so racism is going, and like now we have like, these diversity and inclusions initiatives all the way around. And for me, it's more important for me. Those things are important, but it's important for me to teach your brothers that like, don't fall for banana in the tailpipe. Like, they're saying all of that, and in a perfect world, those things are great. But by no stretch of the imagination have we arrived.
Yes.
You know what I mean? To the point to where
we got work to do still.
Where you got work to do, and you still and there's a lot of these mechanisms that are designed to promote a false idea that these things have happened, that these things are that you can kind of relax now. So my focus was keeping you out of the street, giving you something to do, keeping your mind focused on your education. Being aware of where you are and what your schedule is and things like that. And if you ain't doing something, you're not just out in the street hanging out. Like, nah, that's not acceptable. Like, you know what I mean? You go in the backyard, shoot some hoops. You know what I mean? Instead of, if you want to do that.
How we got to here is really just expounding on building on the piece of what was the bar for me growing up. So for me, that bar was as simple as this. Here's the expectation.
Right.
Is these two things.
So let me tell you where that was born out of, right? When you were in high school, when you had first went into high school, I hadn't graduated from high school at that point. So one of the things for me was that, I'm going to graduate from high school before my son Christopher graduates from high school. Like, because you're the oldest, so like, I'm going to do that. I'm going to graduate from high school before you graduate from high school. And so, because I know how important that is, right? Like, if you go to college or whatever, or you go to like some trade school after high school or whatever, that's up to you. But you can't, that's not an option if you haven't graduated from high school. Right? At least in my mind, in my thinking, right? So for me, that's why it was a big push. Not that college wasn't important or whatever. It was important that you do that because I understood the limit. Like now, even with a high school diploma, that's like nothing. Like even with a college degree,
a bachelor's degree is like nothing.
Right? Exactly. It's like a bachelor's degree nowadays is like a high school diploma.
Exactly.
But back then, for me, it was like,
that's a good springboard.
I understand the importance of graduating from high school. Because I understand the limitations that will be imposed on you if, at a minimum, you don't graduate from high school. So that was the driving force, along with the fact that I hadn't graduated from high school, and although it hadn't limited me in in any real way. Like like when I had gone back to night school to get my high school diploma, like I was working in a field where people, alongside people who had graduate degrees, who had master's degrees.
Yeah,
and things like
I was
that.
going to bring that up actually, because I think it segues perfectly into the lens of which me personally, what the bachelor's degree that I finally have completed this month really meant to me personally, along the side of what I think the high school diploma for you later on in your adult life, what it meant for you. Because it didn't mean once you get this high school diploma, you'll finally be able to finally get a job and feed yourself.
Right.
You were already doing that. As you just stated,
Right.
You're working alongside people with, graduate degrees, what have you.
Right.
Same with myself. Without my bachelor's degree, having started on this journey 20 years ago, I've been able to make a living for myself.
Right.
So it was something in its completion that meant something more personal to me. Mm-hmm. What was that personal thing for you?
As it relates to you?
Well, for you to get because you told me, as it relates to me, hey, it's like, hey, I want my son to get this. Kind of me getting my high school diploma is a way to kind of inspire him to, hey, this is why I need you to do this. But what was that for you? You weren't going to, I got to get this high school diploma because I got to get a job.
Okay, so for me, it was because a part of it was a number of reasons. One, it was something that I wanted for myself, right? I wanted to graduate from high school because when I grew up, that was, in my house, that was the thing. That was the benchmark. Right, graduating from high school was like graduating from college, right? Like, so we're talking. I was born in the '60s. I was in high school. I went. My first year of high school was in 1980, right? So like 1 year out of the '70s. So it's like, So for Black people, you know what I mean? Black people were going to college. Don't get me wrong. I had brothers that graduated, going to college and graduated. But the vast majority of Black people, that was still like a foreign idea, like a foreign concept, right?
Yeah,
we were just. We were still feeling the real effects of Jim Crow, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like living in housing projects, you know what I mean? Things like that. It was crazy. And so why it was important for me to graduate was because that was a benchmark that was like growing up, that was the thing that was always drilled in my head, that graduate from high school. But more importantly, after you guys were born, and like I said, I was working alongside people with advanced degrees and things like that. So it wasn't about getting a job. What it was about was not being a hypocrite. Right here, I am telling my kids like, "Yo, it's important. Y'all need to graduate from high school. You need this, that, or whatever." Yeah. And here I am. I hadn't graduated from high school, and you guys didn't even know that, right? Like,
we had no clue.
You had no clue that I graduated from high school, right? For all y'all know, I graduated from Yale.
Yo, our dad graduated with his master's, PhD from somewhere. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So for me, it was like I didn't. I was giving y'all this message and drilling this in your head, and here I am. I hadn't even graduated from high school. You know what I mean? And so, but the way I was able to kind of like reconcile that was, number one, I knew that I was going to go back to school and finish. And my goal was I will have my children will not get, not one of my children will not, and that was, so you were the first in line. Yeah. So I was like, my son Christopher will not graduate from high school before me. So I was like, yo, so if I ain't going to do it for no other reason, it's going to be one, because I can't be a hypocrite. And number two, I cannot let my son graduate from high school before I graduate from high school. That'd be like crazy.
And I think for me, the really, so I didn't have like really because at this point in time that I've just finished my bachelor's degree, I have 3 daughters, a son. They're in different parts of their journey in school. I have my oldest is about to graduate high school next year. So my drive to finish wasn't at all connected to like making sure I'm not a hypocrite for them, right? So at the time that I did have my first kid, I had already finished high school at least. So now, college was kind of like just extra. But for me, I needed to finish, one, because like I've already mentioned, just to say, I finished something that I started. But 2, I found along the path to pursuing the degree that I was exercising mental and emotional muscles that were not being exercised otherwise in not one other facet of my life.
Okay.
This college experience is something that's unique about this rigorous experience in college. What you can do with the degree aside, people who say, man, there's people with PhDs or masters with no jobs still looking for, I get all that. But there's something to be said, though, about the certain mental and emotional muscles that are exercised in a human being who does go through that course.
Right.
Who goes through, whether it's the 4-year degree, the 6-year degree, that journey I recognize was developing some things in me that I was, praise God, witty enough to extrapolate from that experience and apply in other areas. You know, so whether it was good research ability techniques that now I'm using to research things that I'm actually interested in my entrepreneur endeavors.
Right.
Whatever it was, I saw the value in that, and I'm like, that's going to be the goal or reason too why I need to finish, is so I could fully, to the best of my extent, exercise and develop that muscle right there. Mm-hmm. And then, hey, you know, if I decide that I want to do something with that degree and, you know, go work a 9-to-5 with that, or I decide I don't, to me, the time spent getting the degree won't be a waste.
Right. So, well, you know, and I can respect that, and I can hear that, and I can identify with that, right? So, like, for me, like, you know, I've had some college, you know, and going to college for me had less, it has something to do with wanting to achieve a goal, right? You know, but for the most part, it had more to do with the need in order to be able to access other opportunities that require one to have a college degree. So by the time I went to college, when I went to college, I went there with I kind of approached it from the standpoint that I'm not going to really learn anything here, right? Like there's nothing that they're going to be able to really teach me, right? Which ended up not being true, right? There were some things that I did learn and that I'm grateful for having experience, right? But now, you know, having had some college experience, because I haven't finished my college degree, right? And I don't know if it has more to do with getting older or having other things, you know, take over priority over that for me, or not really necessarily seeing the value of a college education. And what I mean is, like, the value of a college education now is different than it was when I started college years ago, right? So before it was about, well, this will open up a door for me, a good opportunity. Now, not so sure, right? Like, now the world has been reshaped since then, right? Like, like, you know, and plus, like, I have my own business now. Like, I didn't get that through getting a college education.
Exactly.
You know, I have I work, and my 9-to-5 job is a job that requires a college degree, but I have it still, right? You know what I mean? So, like, there's no benefit there for me or whatever. And although I could explore other opportunities that require a college education, those opportunities really aren't as exciting to me anymore as they were in the past.
20 years ago.
20 years ago, right? Exactly. So, like, I'd rather, and then also, there's the thing, the real truth around, like, back in the 80s and even 90s, early 2000s.
He's about to have an old man moment, y'all.
Right, exactly. When you got a college degree.
Back in the 80s.
When you got a college degree, that was almost like a guarantee into, like, a really good paying job.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm about to be balling with this.
Right, exactly. I know people got their PhDs and are, like, driving for Uber.
Check to check, yeah.
They driving Uber. They doing these other delivering food. You know what I mean? From Stop and Shop to my house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say? And it's like, so it's like, wow, you know, like, so I'm like, yo, like, the value added is not there anymore.
Yeah,
at least
diminished.
from and then plus now I'm, like, older now, right? Like, so, like, I'm 54 now. I ain't got another 54. coming. And if I do, my quality of life ain't
Ain't
going
got
to be.
another 54.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So now I'm like, yo, what am I going to do? Like, I probably.
Especially when your professor is likely to be your son's age at
Right.
this point too.
Exactly. So my thing
that
is,
part.
my thing is like, yo, I'm a realist, and like I probably, I'd like to live to see 100. You know, God bless my
Yeah.
father. My father, he's
It's in our genetics.
yeah, you know what I
can
mean. So
happen.
it is plausible, but quality of life I might have a good another 30 if I'm lucky, of where the quality of life is where like I'm fully functional. I'm not dependent on nobody to
Yeah.
make my meals, keep my schedule for me, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So my thing is, what do I want to do with that next 30 years? You know what I mean? And so for me,
Yeah.
I'd rather build on the things that I've already been able to accomplish without a college
yeah.
degree. And then, so does that mean that I'm not going to finish my college degree? Absolutely not. I am. I'm too close, number one. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'm like a handful of classes away from getting my college degree. But I know that, like, especially, and plus, I'm feeling kind of tight at the fact that, like, yo, like, college is so, the cost of college now, you know what I mean? Had I known
It's crazy.
what I know right now, I'd have zero college education right now. Like formal.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even invest it in that at all because like the dividend is not there. It's not.
And make sure you listeners out there, because I know I got some young folk out there who listen also and tune in. We are not at all advocating that if you are planning to go to college to suddenly throw it away and change your mind. We are not advocating
Absolutely
to ban college. We're not anti-college in the least at all. Not at all. But definitely, if it's for you, if it's something that is for you, your family is supporting you in that. That's the direction that you're going. It's the direction that you're already on. By all means, if you completely feel like it's for you, there's a place. It is definitely efficacy there. There's value there.
Right, but you need one thing you also need to do. If you're gonna go, make sure you're ready to go. Make sure you are ready to go. Going to college to figure out whether or not you want to go to college is not the thing to
that
do.
Part.
Yeah.
Don't sign that long piece of paperwork dotted line
No.
to figure out if you want to go.
Right, exactly. So you can go not knowing what you want to do with your life, because that's part of the college experience, right? Is to go to figure out, who you are as a person, kind of what your interests are. That's all part of the college experience. But don't go to college if you haven't decided that you want to go to college, that's where you want to be, that you're going to finish in 4 years or 2 years or whatever. Don't go there go there with the plan that I'm going to go to finish, to start, like in 4 years, I will be walking across that stage, being conferred my degree and this, that, or whatever. If you ain't at that point, if you don't have that, at least that level of commitment, don't go.
Yeah.
Don't go.
Yeah, don't do it.
Go deliver some food for whoever, drive and drop some other people off the college campus.
But you got to have a plan, because in the famous words of Craig's daddy, around here, you're going to work or go to school.
That's right.
At the end of the month, the rent is due.
That's right.
and that's that.
Right.
So, if you're enjoying the content, if you enjoy listening and tuning in, be sure to follow at Free Lunch everywhere: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Free Lunch. That's FRII Lunch. Also tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, streaming anywhere podcasts are streamed. So you said something that made me want to piggyback off our last thing about you're like mid-50 mark now, right? And you might have a solid 30 more years. You said of like great quality of life.
Right, great quality of life.
Right,
I plan on living another 100 years.
Yeah. Where I don't need help with somebody feeding me or taking care of me, like in that,
I can still bench press 300 pounds.
Yeah, at 80.
That's what I'm talking about. 85.
So
85.
With that on like the cusp, and just one being like through the lens of being like a man, a black male. I know, like, statistically, you know, there are some, whether there's statistics or stereotypes, whatever you want to call them. I'm not familiar with all of them, but around, you know, men, and especially sometimes black men, we can sometimes ignore our personal health and not really be as what's the word I'm looking for?
Health conscious
or diligent, you know?
Yeah, physically fit.
So, you know, with those of you who've been following, you know, a bit of my story, at the time that this actual episode maybe airs, I may be on the other side of my pending surgery, coming up with a blood clot that I recently had. So I have the second part of that surgery coming up this week. But it has put me in a mindset as I in the private place and alone time with my wife, have more discourse about me being personally health conscious, taking into fact, you know, the coming surgery. But it's kind of like hyper, like, soup my wife up. And honey, if you're out there listening, you know, no offense to the wives who love their husbands and just trying to take care of them. But it's kind of made her like super, you know, aware and sensitive. And I have to admit, if I'm honest, prior to any of this, I really didn't have like a really great solid baseline of like health consciousness really either. Kind of like just kind of going about life with this I'm kind of invincible kind of mindset. You know what I mean? So where like I'm not getting like, you know, once a year physical like I probably should.
Okay.
As I myself approach 40, you know.
Right.
So I might not be in my mid 50s like Pops, but I'm also not a spring chicken anymore.
Right.
Was there for you a certain age or an event that made you more health conscious for yourself that you are now, or even at mid 50s? Do you feel like there's a lot more you could do to actually be health conscious?
Yes and yes. So I'm
not the only one, y'all. Y'all hear him, right? He
Right.
said there's, yes, he could do more to be health conscious. So
and yes, there was.
blame him. I get it from him. I probably get it from him.
So I first started being health conscious, and what I mean, let me qualify that. That what I mean by health conscious is not like going to the gym on a regular basis or even eating healthy food. What I meant is developing a relationship with my doctor. Okay. And so that started with the idea that I would get a physical every year on my birthday. Right.
Okay.
So, and that started happening probably around age 30, because believe it or not,
I like that idea. That's a nice idea.
There was a time when
birthday means doctor physical appointment.
Right, exactly. So there was a time where for black men, I would say for black men, just black people in general, that 30 was considered middle-aged, right? Like seriously, like when you were 30, that was considered being middle-aged. Now it's maybe like 40, 45, right? But when
And middle age is, they're basing that on what the general life expectancy is.
Right, exactly.
So it was probably around 30 because the life expectancy was probably about late 60s or
right, exactly.
And as technology and advancements in health increase, it's now about 45.
And also you typically retired around 60, 62, 65.
Okay.
So it was considered like once you're 30, you're middle age.
You're halfway to retirement.
Exactly. You're halfway through life or whatever.
Yeah.
So when I hit 30, right, I was no longer in my 20s. And I was like, wow, I can't go to the club no more. I can't, you know what I mean? I gotta go. My whole life consists of getting up in the morning, you know what I mean? And, you know, sending my kids to school, going to work, coming home, and being grumpy, right? Right, exactly. So, and that's in that order, right? And so, and I occasionally went to the gym. So I would say that. But anyway, but getting back to when I became
establishing a relationship with the doctor first.
Right, exactly. So I said, you know what? And I don't know where I got that concept from. It wasn't my own. It wasn't an original idea. But somebody said to me, I think that, you know, like, oh, you know, my birthday's coming up. I got to schedule my annual physical with my doctor. And as a, so you get your physical on your birthday? It's like, well, no, but I get it either around my birthday. Like that's my reminder each year to get a physical. I was like,
I think that's why the DMV does that with your license too. It expires on your birthday.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly right. So you'll remember.
Right,
exactly. So that's when it happened.
Take notes, people.
And it happened. And shout out to my newly retired, long longtime healthcare provider, Dr. Samuel Geller, one of the greatest doctors in the world.
Big up.
Yeah, he retired like 3 years ago, and
Wow.
it's been oh God, finding a replacement is like, geez,
Yeah.
you know, hard got a replacement. But anyway, so it was that. So that was the one that got me started on my journey of at least checking in once a year. Right. And I've been fortunate, you know, no diabetes, no high blood pressure, no high cholesterol, things like that. Fast forward now into my 50s, right? Where I was still getting my physical every year, but I was not being health conscious in the sense of watching when I ate. I haven't eaten pork, you know, as just a choice, you know what I mean? Related to my religious beliefs in over 25 years. So that's out. But everything else was kind of like, you know, up for grabs. You know, fried chicken, you know what I mean? Whatever, you know, steak. Desserts, all of that stuff. Yeah. So I was eating all of that. And it was only in the last year that I become conscious about the food that I eat because it started having a real impact on my life. So for about 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with sleep apnea. And sleep apnea is not a disease. It's a syndrome related specifically to obesity.
Wow.
Only people who are obese, you know, acquire sleep apnea. You know, if you're not obese, you will not have sleep apnea. Okay?
And this is not something that over those course of yearly check-ins from the start that you could like slowly begin to get hint toward happening?
What happened is my wife, Chandra, your stepmom, she was complaining that I was snoring at night. And I was like, nah, I ain't snoring. What are you talking about? Get out of here. I ain't snoring. She's like, Jonathan, you're snoring. I'm like, nah, I don't snore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so one night, she recorded me snoring. And it was like a freight train.
That's how you gotta do us, man. We're not buying unless you got receipts. Show me the proof.
Exactly. And so I was like, whoa. She's like, yes, Jonathan. And then she said, and you be stopping breathing, I think. And then I was like, stop breathing now. Wait a minute, snoring's one thing, but stopping breathing. She's like, yeah. She says, and that's usually a sign of sleep apnea. And then sure enough, you know, I got to go do my research. So I started doing my research, and I was like, B.
And it's the first time you're hearing this word, this thing, sleep apnea. And this...
No. I had known that sleep apnea, but again, sleep apnea is people who are obese.
Oh,
so I'm thinking,
and you look in the mirror like I'm not obese.
I'm not
Stop
obese.
Playing.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I got some.
I might not be Arnold, but I'm far from obese.
I got a couple of little, you know, I could do some sit-ups, but I ain't obese.
Yeah.
So I went, I checked in with my doctor and let him know that. So he recommended that I, you know, have a sleep study performed, and sure enough, I had a sleep study performed, and I was diagnosed with clinical sleep apnea to the point to where they recommended that I start using a CPAP machine. And that's when I was like, yo, get out of here. For real. So I was like, all right, so I'm using, so I started using this, the sleep apnea machine. And so this was like 5 years ago. And then like 3 years ago, like it wasn't getting no better. I was still being tired in the morning. You know what I mean? Like I'm using this thing for 8 hours religiously every day.
Now, interestingly enough, though, you said at the beginning, though, that sleep apnea is a condition that happens to people who are obese.
Right.
Now, when I imagine you get something prescribed to you or to use, like a sleep apnea machine, the machine aside, if the condition of obesity remains, or whatever your health is, does that...
It gets progressively worse.
That undermines the machine work.
Exactly, and you get progressively worse.
So the machine isn't an answer or a cure.
No. The machine is treating the sickness.
The machine is a sustaining device.
Exactly. So like right now, like anything else, we don't have healthcare in society. We have sick care. Right? There is no.
We don't have healthcare, you guys. We have sick care.
That's
Pay attention.
Right. Because
pay attention.
As someone who's a former pharmacy technician, I can tell you.
Yes.
There is no money in cure. There's no money in cure.
There's no money in health.
Exactly.
Care.
Just like Like in
care.
like in the streets, the drug dealer there's no benefit in rehab for the drug dealer. You understand what I'm trying to say? It's coming from the streets, right? Nah, we don't want you going to
Big
rehab.
Pharma is not getting paid.
They're not getting paid.
With cures abounding.
Exactly.
Okay.
So sleep apnea machines are there to treat the sick, not cure sleep apnea.
Yes.
It's not a cure, right? But
Got you.
the cure, oddly enough, doesn't require medication for most people. What it requires is a commitment to better health. If you lose that weight, your sleep apnea will become better, and eventually will go away.
Yeah.
Most people who reduce their weight down to what is the acceptable body mass index for their age and BMI, right? Exactly.
Yep.
Will no longer need a sleep apnea machine. You know what I mean? A CPAP machine.
Yeah.
And so I haven't achieved that goal yet.
Okay.
In fact,
so that's the area where you say I have more that I could be doing.
There's more I could be doing. And in the another part to that is my sleep apnea got progressively worse because I was using the CPAP machine. So the CPAP machine was working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, okay, great. You know, I feel a lot better in the morning now. I'm using the CPAP machine. So I can just eat anything I want now, right? I can just, whatever. Nope.
This guy.
It got worse. So now, on top of my sleep apnea, I've developed something called residual daytime sleepiness disorder, where not only do I have to use the CPAP machine, I have to take medication to keep me awake.
This is crazy.
During the day. Because by lunchtime, I feel as though I haven't even used the CPAP machine. I feel like I could go to sleep till the next day.
That's crazy.
Right. But coming fast forward, I have now committed myself to not only losing weight, but also alongside that, developing a healthy relationship with food and losing weight in an effort to finally unhandcuff myself from a sleep apnea machine and the need to take medication on top of it. So again, like I said, it's fortunate, I haven't developed any other real health elements, ailments, other than contending with the sleep apnea. My cholesterol has gotten a little high. It's not high to the point to where I need to take medication, thanks God.
Yeah.
My blood pressure as well. But again, all of those things can be, improved.
So for me, they sent me home after the first surgery. I've been now having to take blood thinner medication. But it's been only difficult because I'm not used to taking anything regularly every day. So I forget sometimes, like as soon as I wake up in the morning, maybe to take it. I might, remember a little closer to noontime, to take the medication for the morning. But I get it. My wife has been, helping to remind me with that. And it's supposedly only be like, something that's going to be for only like the next 3 months or 4 months. With the, very likelihood and, hope that this next surgery coming up where I have the rib removal goes well also. So that's my piece. Past that, you know what I mean? It's made me be in general just health conscious or see the value. I think that's the first step is I could start on the road of being better and being more self-conscious when I can first see and identify the value in it.
Right. Yeah, that's important.
So I think right now is really my value season more than the actual action piece.
Right.
Yet I feel like I'm right there at that transitional line of going, being more, active. But I definitely, for sure, at this point.
So let me tell you something. It's interesting because you're one of the regrets that I have now, right? Because there was a time, especially in my teens and in my 20s, I was really into like weightlifting and stuff like that, being fit, being able to do like 100 push-ups straight and things like that. But then life consumes you, right? And all these you have these competing interests and, mostly centered around work and parenthood and things like that. And so then, but then then it's one of those things that you always tell yourself, I'll have time to get back to. I'll do this later in life. And for me, that was a huge mistake that I made, because now I'm grappling with trying to. It's more difficult, number one, to get back to a healthy space.
Yeah.
And you become more easily frustrated as a result of that. Like, it takes harder for me to recover now from workouts and things like that.
Yep.
And it's more difficult for me to want to go to the gym and this, that, or whatever. And so all of those things play a role. But one thing that I've recently discovered that speaks to this whole this idea of value is that I can't remember his name, but he's an African-American actor. He's pretty well known, been in some really good movies. He's from Bridgeport, Connecticut. His name's Michael
Jai White.
Michael Jai White.
Yeah, he's opening a facility out here, actually.
Okay, cool. Michael Jai White. I was reading an article that he wrote on fitness maybe about 2 months ago, and where he was talking about him and his wife, and his wife's an actress, and she does a lot of roles that require physical, agility and things like that. And he was talking about how they've developed a fitness routine for the two of them that they both do together, right? And how how for him, it's a lifestyle. So it's always been something that he's embraced. He's a martial artist. He's full of fitness. It's like for him, like not working out is like not taking a shower every day, right? So that's not something that he grappled with, but it was one of the things that kind of concerned him early on in his marriage. Like, would this be something that I'd be able to do with my wife and convince her of the value of it? And fortunately for them, it was, because it was something that she needed to do as part of her work to be, physically fit and this, that, or whatever. But one of the things that he said, and this is the part that hit home with me, was, here's the thing. You're able to do these things now. There is going to come a time in your life when you're not able to do it.
Yeah, that's going to be scary.
So why not do it? And for me, that just clicked, and it logically made sense to me that he is so right. There is going to come a time that this thing right here is like a blessing. It's like something that it's a gift that you have. So why not take advantage of it now? Because he said there's even going to come a day that I'm not able to do all of these things that I'm able to do right now. He said, so if for no other reason, why not do it? Yeah. And for me, that's the thing that stuck to me the most as far as like a motivator and why I should be doing these things.
I mean, I think that's a mic drop that's perfectly timed to end our episode with, is not just in lieu of like the, current, present health concerns that are ahead of me or before me right now, and taking just that idea of finding value in personal health. There's a time you can do it right now, those things. There'll be a time where you may not or will not be able to do them. And I think with me being a super creative, and a lot of the other creatives that listen and tune in and follow me on my platforms, you could say the same, apply the same principle to whatever are those other, maybe just talents and gifts that you have. Your health being the, most important out of any, a talent or ability. You can, if you're not healthy, you can't do nothing. I don't care how talented you are. But there may become a time where you don't have the ability to move the way you move. If your certain gift or talent requires that, maybe you're an athlete that's super talented, right. And you're flaking and not being committed and diligent, and all you could be pursuing that and being committed to developing that. Maybe you're an artist, a painter, and you know what? After time and time, or people who tell you how great of a painter you are, hey man, you should really take that further, or you should do something with that gift. And hey, there'll be a time where those hands aren't as steady as they are now, where those hands tremble now when you hold the brush.
Right.
So I think that's a really dope, like I said, mic drop, a point. It brings it really full circle. Again, just the more acute point and thing ahead of me right now, with my health, speaking to just general finding value for men, particularly my father here with me, myself, and our men's health, but also finding value in Michael Jai White's wisdom. Shout out to Michael Jai White of, listen, man, you're able to now find the value, take care of your personal health now, do what you can now. Those of you are talented creatives alike out there, you got the gift, you got the ability now. Go ahead and do it, man. That's that free lunch. That's that free food for your soul. That's what I'm talking about, y'all. Be sure, follow Free Lunch everywhere on Facebook, social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at Free Lunch, FRII Lunch. And, of course, Pops already told you, he's an entrepreneur, businessman in his own right. He's one of the most phenomenal photographers I know. Pops, you want to give a plug where they can find you, or you don't want them looking for you like that right now?
Nah, I'm good. You know,
he low key like that. He low key like that.
You know what I mean? I'm not into.
But if you see anywhere on my social media some of those fly images or whatever, if you follow the rabbit hole, you'll find your way to him. That's that dude right there. Big shout out to Pops, man. ElmCityImages.com. All right, man. Peace, y'all. Till next time. Love you. One.